Welcome to Moments in Time and Space, a microfiction podcast, bringing you tales of horror and suspense with your host, Aaron Maracle. Hello everyone. Ever since we first landed on the moon in 1969, people have dreamed about going back. The goal of the Artemis mission is to make that a reality, but it has had some trouble getting off the launch pad. Administrator Nelson leaned back in his large leather office chair and smiled as he watched a large television screen. On the bright screen, our large rocket was poised for takeoff, and in 15 minutes, man would take its first steps to return to the moon. NASA had been working on the Artemis project for a few years, and the organization was ready to celebrate its first milestone. His desk phone began to ring, and Nelson glanced at the call display. Tycho Inc. flashed in bright green letters as the phone rang again and again. The administrator pondered not answering the call, but he knew that this was not an option. He knew the launch would be pushing the boundaries of the agreement signed back in 1963, and it was time to deal with the issue. The administrator scooped up the receiver of the headset and answered the call. "Administrator Nelson speaking," Nelson said to the receiver. A harsh metallic voice that sounded distant offered a terse reply. "You must stop. We're 5 minutes from launch. We cannot stop. You are in violation of the Tycho Accord. You cannot go to the moon." "We are not in violation of the Accord. It states no manned flights or landings on the surface of the moon will be attempted by Earth until agreement is reached by all parties. This rocket only contains an unmanned probe." There was a long and troubled silence on the phone. Nelson thought he could hear some type of squawking and whistles, but it was hard to tell. He glanced at the television screen and saw the launch countdown had less than 6 minutes left. "You must not go to the moon," ordered the distant metallic voice. "We will launch the probe in less than 6 minutes, Nelson replied. "We are not in violation of the Accord. You could have alerted us if you had a concern before we reached this point." "We did alert you. We showed you what would happen if you go to the moon." "I received no communication or warning." "Not communication. Weather." "Pardon me?" "Weather. We manipulate the weather to warn you. If you launch, we will make it worse." Administrator Nelson paused. He thought about the weather and climate occurrences that seemed unusually severe the last 2 years. Hurricanes, floods, drought, forest fires. Unnatural weather events of unmatched intensity that had created disasters that had led to significant loss of life and incredible high recovery costs. His grip tightened on the phone receiver as he began to comprehend the threat that was being made. "You can't do this," Nelson said. "This launch, you cannot go to the moon. If you do, there will be consequences. This is unfair. This is an Accord violation. I want to file a dispute. You can call for our tribunal to aid in the settlement of this dispute as per the Accords, but do not launch." There was a click and the call ended. Nelson glanced at the television screen and watched the countdown clock. He had less than 5 minutes to decide. He could scrub the launch and disappoint a lot of people, as well as jeopardize the future of the project, or he could do nothing, let the probe launch, and risk thousands of lives. The image of extreme weather events wreaking havoc across the planet filled his head, and he knew what he had to do. The administrator scooped up the receiver on the desk phone and punched the hotline button for mission control. 3 long rings went by, and the flight director answered. "Flight director speaking. Do we have an issue?" asked Charlie Blackwell Thompson. "Scrub the launch," Administrator Nelson ordered. "Pardon?" "We need to scrub the launch immediately." "With all due respect, Tycho Accord violation. Don't argue." "Oh, I see. Do we have a public reason for the scrub?" "We will say there was a fuel leak we were unable to resolve before launch." "Understood. We will scrub the launch immediately." Nelson hung up the phone and grimaced. He watched the television to see the announcement of the launch scrub. He was not looking forward to facing the press or filing dispute requests for the Tycho Accord. Both activities were tedious, and the follow-up of adjusting project schedules, finding additional funding, and repeating the information to various levels of government made him tired just thinking about it. There was a rumble of thunder, and Administrator Nelson glanced outside his window. Dark thunder clouds had rolled in and blanketed the launch area in a gray shadow. The wind seemed to pick up out of nowhere, and looked like there was a good possibility of rain. Nelson was not sure if this was a natural occurrence or a reminder of possible consequences of trying to launch the probe. Either way, he was going to add a few words to the statement that adverse weather conditions were also a factor in canceling the launch. Did we really land on the moon in 1969? Thank you all for listening to this moment. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. You can also follow me on Twitter at MomentsInTAS. Feel free to recommend this podcast to others and help it grow. Please check out our Patreon page if you want to offer additional support for this podcast. The opening and closing theme is Creepy Night by Daniel Carlton. Until next time, be safe, be smart, and be well. See you soon.